safely tucked into Ivy's pocket and begun their long trek through the forest. They wandered through the foxgloves and snowdrops, over the moss-clad trees, stumped through woodland clearings. Many hours passed, and Ivy's legs arched with tiredness. Daylight faded, and high above the treetops, a starry night sky began to emerge. Ahead, Ivy could see a cluster of twinkling lights, as though a tiny galaxy had fallen from the sky. "Ah, we're right on time," said House Mouse, who suddenly had a spring in her step and scrumped toward the illumination. As she grew nearer, Ivy realized the lights were not fallen stars, but garlands of lanterns strung between the trees above a circle of toadstools. The golden haze looked so warm and welcoming in the cold, dark forest. This village in the home of the Wonderland Elves, explained House Mouse cheerily. "We can rest here for a few hours. The elves pride themselves on being the best hosts in Enchantia. We're just in time for the evening feast." Oh. Ivy did her best to mirror House Mouse's happy expression, but secretly she was worried. Surely the elves would want something in return for their hospitality. The only thing she could repay them with was the compass, and she couldn't give that away. Alright, so that's the compass. I'm assuming it looks like a little bug, but that's pretty cool. And they are stopped at, they said trolls or elves. They said elves. At the elves' place. And they're the best host. Alright, let's go. Laid out under the lantern was a long wooden table, piled high with apples, berries, nuts of every kind, freshly baked bread, pots of honey, and blackberry tarts. A huddle of elves, all dressed in leafy tunics and dresses, appeared from inside the toadstool houses. "Welcome, welcome," they shouted. "Please join us for a feast." Ivy passed a plate of blueberry tarts to House Mouse and clinked goblets with her new friend. She had realized for the first time how lovely it was to be part of the chatter and laughter that engulfs the dinner table. The elves were an inquisitive bunch and wanted to know all about Ivy and her companion. Where did they come from? Where were they going? What were they seeking? They listened, falling quiet and wide-eyed when Ivy revealed that they were headed to Draconia. "You must eat plenty to fuel you for this quest," insisted plump old Grandmother Elf. So Ivy and Mouse ate every single bite of their plate, and then they had a second helping. The food was the most delicious Ivy had ever tasted. As she sunk her teeth into an apple muffin, the familiar scent of freshly baked cake filled her nose, and for a brief moment she was reminded of her grandmother, busy in the kitchen of a little pink house. For the first time in her adventure, she felt far, far away from home. By the end of the feast, the table was almost bare, and the elves were delirious with sleep. Some stumbled drowsily toward their toadstool homes, while others snoozed at the table. Ivy's own eyes suddenly felt heavy, and she yawned. "We should sleep too," suggested House Mouse. "Tomorrow we will reach Draconia." She curled into a ball on the fuzzy floor. Ivy knew her little friend was right, so she laid down beside her and closed her eyes. Grandmother Elf, the only one snoozing yet, fetched 2 patchwork quilts and pulled them over the sleeping travelers, gently tucked them in as they slept beneath the stars. Alright, I guess was the feast. That's cool. I like that. The next morning, as the forest birds began their morning chorus, Ivy woke House Mouse, and they tiptoed out of the sleeping elf village. The gentle sounds of snoring echoed around them. Ivy looked back and smiled, remembering the fun and laughter of the night before, then turned to catch up with House Mouse. As they walked through a shady patch of ferns, House Mouse raised her nose to the sky and sniffed. Smoke, she squeaked. She was right. There was a scorched tinge to the air. They must be nearing Dragonia. The smoky air tickled Ivy's throat, reminding her of bonfires and fireworks. She had expected to feel scared as they approached Dragonia, but knowing she was now so close to finding her butterfly filled her with courage. She was just determined to complete the quest and bring the butterfly home. Every night she caught her imagination. Wandering, conjuring up images of fire-breathing dragons. She forced herself to picture that beautiful butterfly back in the wandering room where it belonged. As the forest foliage began to thin, small patches of burning leaves could be seen in the treetops, probably a misdirect fireball. Dragons are notoriously clumsy, said House Mouse. Tutting soon they reached the edge of the house. House Mouse and Ivy hid in a patch of sky blue forget-me-nots, their small faces peering between the flower before them. Surrounded by a thick tangle of smoldered brambles and stood a ruined castle. They noticed a small, meaning-look griffin perched on intervals within the thorns. Lookouts, whispered House Mouse. Ivy checked the compass. It was pointed directly at the castle. If she was to find her butterfly, they must find a way in. But they could never scale the fiery thorns or sneak past all the griffins. They both stared at the castle, deep in thought, trying to come up with another plan. Alright, so we've reached Dragonia. It smells like fire, and they got griffins guarding the broke-down castle. Alright, good deal. Let's keep reading. Noticing a small gap in the brambles directly beneath a bored-looking griffin, Ivy pointed to it. Look, House Mouse, she said. I'm sure we could crawl through that hole. House Mouse peered through the smoke to where Ivy was pointing. She nodded. Alright, so this griffin must be bored. That's the griffin that must be bored. Alright, let's see. Before they had time to consider the danger, Ivy and House Mouse crept through the safety of the forget-me-nots and scrambled along the thorn-lined path toward the castle, being careful to avoid the glowing embers and hot spots. They ducked beneath smoldered leaves and hid in the shadows, hoping the griffin wouldn't look directly down. They were almost at the gap when a blast of air from above fanned the embers around them, so they glowed red hot. They heard a terrifying screech and a flap of wing. Suddenly, Ivy and Mouse were snatched from the ground by talons and carried into the sky by a ferocious griffin. Ivy its find, or to warn dragons of the trespassers. Ivy, what shall we do? Squeaked the mouse. Squeaked the house mouse, her voice shaking with fear. I really don't know, Ivy, replied Ivy, tears welling up in her eyes. She realized how silly it was for her to think a small girl and a mouse could outfox a griffin. Just as she was regretting even finding the door in the water room, she heard a familiar buzzing noise. Can you hear that? She called to the house mouse, the wind whistling in the ears and the noise of the griffin's wings batting loudly. Yes, house mouse listened instantly. What is that? Ivy and house mouse listened as the buzzing grew louder and louder. Suddenly, out of the smoke, her bee appeared. She cheered towards the griffin. She charged towards the griffin, but the fierce beast flicked at the bee with its wings, sending it hurtling through the air in a blur of yellow and black. The beast buzzed in circles, stunned by the collision. What could one little bee possibly do when faced by a griffin? Thought Ivy desperately. Oh, so her bee friend came back. That's good to hear. Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm assuming the bee friend called his buddies. Let's see. She noticed the noise altered in tone and volume to a deep, loud humming, like the sound of 100 motorbikes getting louder. The griffin heard it too. Ivy saw it jerk its head left and right, straining to see where the noise was coming from. Out of the dense smoke, a swarm of bees arrived, charging the griffin. Leading the attack was the queen bee, in a tiny golden crown perched upon her head. The bee approached as a throbbing cloud of black, surrounding the griffin and engulfing in the tremendous storm of buzzing. The griffin lurched through the air, disoriented and confused. Then, without a warning, it released Ivy and the house mouse from its talons. They hurtled toward the flaming thorn below. Somersaulting through the air, two bees broke off the back and sped toward Ivy and house mouse, scooping them up in their fluffy back and saving them from their perilous fate. All right. Our bee friends came back to help, leaded by the queen bee herself. They saved Ivy and house mouse from the griffins, and they are back to their quest, I'm assuming. I guess we'll see. Alright. Sorry if you can hear my dog, he's being antsy out there. Ivy collapsed onto the back of the bee and clung on. She saw house mouse doing the same, her little body still trembling. The swarm retreated to the forest and settled in the small clearing on foot of a giant oak tree. As Ivy and house mouse slid from their bee and caught their breath, the bees surrounded them, their buzzing quietly to a low hum. The queen bee landed in front of Ivy and house mouse. That was a rather daring feat, she said. Around her and the other hummed in agreement. I know it seems silly now to think that we could have snuck past the griffins, replied Ivy, her voice quiet in defeat. At least you tried, replied the queen bee. I've seen many treasure hunters much bigger than you lured to the castle by greed. Most of them turn back when they see the flaming thorns. You took a risk and all for a much nobler cause than mere gems and gold. Ivy glanced up at her. Yes, buzzed the queen. One of my worker bees told me you're on a quest. I'm impressed. Your intentions were admirable, and because of that, I will help you. The queen bee told them of a secret tunnel that led from the oak tree to the castle dungeon. Before Ivy could say thank you, the bee took to the sky with a synchronized hum, leaving Ivy and house mouse alone once more. Okay. Alright, so she's just getting helped left people here in Enchantia. Alright, let's see what's happening. Ivy peered between the primroses that surrounded the trunk, and sure enough, hidden behind the leaves was a little wooden door. She turned the handle and it creaked open, revealing a spiral staircase leading down into the roots of the tree. She hesitated at the doorway, then felt House Mouse tug at her shirt. "Shall we?" she squeaked. Ivy nodded, and the pair of them stepped into the darkness together. Uh-oh, spaghetti. I don't know, should we stop there? There's not too much left. Alright, let's hit this one page and then maybe we can finish up. It was as black as midnight in the tunnel, but as Ivy and House Mouse walked, hibernating fireflies snoozing in glass jars suddenly buzzed to life, illuminating their path with the warm glow. The tunnel was laced with dusty cobwebs. "Oh my," gasped House Mouse, "this place could do a bit of spring cleaning." Ivy chuckled at her new friend. She was grateful both for the light in the under passage and for having House Mouse at her side. The dark could be a scary place for someone with a big imagination, but having House Mouse with her gave her courage. Soon they saw a patch of light in the floor, a gap in the stonework. They peeked through the hole and saw a diamond chandelier suspended below them on the end of an enormous metal chain. Silently they squeezed through the gap, climbed down the chain to the chandelier, and peered into the dungeon. Alright, so they're definitely in now, I think. There's the chandelier that they went through. Beneath them, a family of dragons, each armed with a sword, was gathered around a long banquet table. Their teeth and talons glittered in the candlelight around the dragons. Gemstones were clustered together in a pile, stacked high in dazzling mountains. A chest, a gold bowl overflowed with twinkling treasures. The dragon walls were crumbled and stained black with smoke. Royal flags hung limply, while suits of armor, knights, shields, and family portraits lay abandoned and broken. Ivy and House Mouse watched silently as the dragons skewed chunks of meat from their large platters, inhaled deeply, and then unleashed balls of roaring fire, cracked flames onto the flesh, instantly roasting them. With theatrical flair, they tore the meat from the blade with their razor-like teeth, while plums of twist black smoke escaped from their nostrils. House Mouse gasped. "What have we done? We should never have come here," she squeaked. Her nose trembled. Her voice trembled. And I'm assuming this is all the stuff that the dragons have. Alright, now I think we're on to the dragons, so I think I will end it here. I'm going to put my little piece of paper back, because that is going to help me remember that I am here. But that is the next little part of the book. We've made it to Dragonia. We're about to interact with the dragons. We've met, I think, one new character, the elves. The elves are a new character, and the bees came back. So technically two, but we've already met the bees, so they're just reintroduced. We met them, and we're about to meet the dragons now. I wonder if she's gonna take some stuff from Dragonia to bring back to the elves and bring back to the bees. right now I'm still coloring in my other one, but I'm eagerly waiting to finish this reading and then be able to color it. I'm excited to show you guys. I'm going to do a video on the other one of all the things I've colored so far. I'm about a quarter of all the things I've colored so far, but I'm about a quarter of the way done with my other book. Not like front to back. I've moved around a lot in the book, but yeah. But yeah, this is the Johanna Ivy and the Inky Butterfly, a magical tale to color. But I hope you guys enjoy.